My next guest of the day is in the studio. I'd like to say good morning to Margaret Richardson, who is am I right, Margaret, Preston Branch Fundraising Secretary for Samaritans?
Fundraising and publicity, if you want my full title.
Well, go on then, give us your full title. You are Fundraising and Publicity
Deputy
for
Preston Samaritans.
Right, and Samaritans are based in St Wilfrid Street, aren't they?
They are.
And you're entirely staffed by volunteers, is that correct?
We have one paid member of staff, and she's the cleaner, but she's also a listener.
Right, so the people who answer the phones are volunteers in Samaritans, aren't they?
That's right.
How do you get people involved and onto your sort of bank? It's like nursing, isn't it? You have a bank of volunteers who are available.
Yeah, we've 110 at the moment. We've a next batch of trainees due to come into the duty room any time, I think in about a fortnight.
How long does training last?
It's about 9 weeks.
Right.
Only 1 day a week, not 9 full weeks.
Right, okay.
We do 2 Sundays, 6 Wednesdays or Mondays, it depends who's doing the training, and then 1 further Sunday. Then after that, they get assigned to a experienced volunteer as a mentor, and then you're in the duty room with a mentor for about 6 weeks before you're allowed to go solo. Right,
so when you answer the phone, you're actually in an office dedicated, or are you at home as a volunteer?
No, we're in the office.
You're in the office?
Yeah.
So how many volunteers did you have?
110.
But you always need more.
You know, it's a bit. We always say it's like a leaking bucket. As we're pouring new volunteers in at the top, for various reasons, people are dripping out at the bottom.
Yeah. Now, we obviously we're going to talk about the serious side of what the services that you offer, but I googled you yesterday, and I found a picture of you in Lancashire Life with a glass of wine in your hand. It was last October, November. You just had an anniversary of your Samaritans.
Yes, it was 60 years since Chad Vara started Samaritans in London.
I knew that was the name I was trying to seek for, yeah. What was his story?
He was a curator in a church in London, and he'd taken us a funeral of a young lady who'd taken her own life. And of course, in those days, it was still illegal to take your own life. It was you could be arrested if you failed. That's why we say commit suicide, because it was classed as an offence. And we try not to say commit suicide now.
Right. So
because it isn't illegal anymore. And so he'd taken this funeral, and he realised that people needed somebody to talk to. So he started opening his church crypt, and it got quite busy. So he got some of his parishioners to come in and make tea and biscuits while people were waiting to see him. And then sometimes when they'd had tea and biscuits and talked to the volunteers, they didn't need to speak to him, and he realised that you didn't have to be a vicar or a doctor or a psychiatrist or anybody to try and help somebody. You just had to listen.
Yeah.
And that's how we started the listeners.
To cry on and a
shoulder
ear
to cry on. And now we've got 202 branches throughout the country.
At what point do people realise that they need to talk to someone? I mean, do you see symptoms or signs which are quite common? Things that people are doing in their life but they're not coping with work, or
we get all sorts of calls. We get anything from, we always say laughingly, from somebody's budgie dying, which might sound funny, but it isn't if that's the only thing you have to talk to all day.
Well, I can feel that about my dog, and he's only 4, and I'm thinking about it already. There's nothing worse than losing a treasured pet, is there?
No. And we're there to offer support from anything from that to bereavement, redundancy, money worries, mental health issues. We get quite a lot of mental health issues because we're the only 24/7 listening service available.
So as a volunteer, you have to be prepared to volunteer nights, don't you?
That is the downside to volunteering, although some of our volunteers like doing the night duties.
Yeah.
But we do expect everybody to do at least one every maybe 2 or 3 months.
Is there a format that your volunteers must follow when they pick the phone up? I mean, there are sort of things that you have to do or things that you can't say.
We don't give advice. That's the biggest misconception of Samaritans.
You're not going to solve people's problems and say, go to ABC and it's sorted.
Well, that might be right for me, but it wouldn't necessarily be right for you or our callers. Right. So what we do is we explore their options, just listen, non-judgmental, strictly confidential. It has to be strictly confidential. It wouldn't work if it wasn't. And sometimes when they've talked through it and just got it off the chest, they feel a lot better, hopefully.
Yeah.
We always say it's a bit like you know when you've got a lot of worries and you're going round and round and round and it's all going round in your head and it's like you can't get off. It's like a hamster going round and round in a wheel. We try to say that we put a brake on that wheel and just say, hang on a minute. let's just have a look what's going on, and let's see if we can...
You need somebody to tell you that it's happened and it's going to be there, and this is,
And sometimes it's normal that you're feeling like you are feeling.
Yeah. So Samaritans is a name that everybody knows, but what if you're under 18? Can you ring Samaritans if you're a minor?
We do occasionally get calls from under 18s.
Yeah, I mean, I chose 18, it could be 16, it could be 21, but legally it's all sorts of a minefield,
Yeah, it is.
it?
If we get a call from a minor, then we have to pass it on to our higher up. We still take the call, but we might discuss it with higher up the ladder to make them aware that we've taken a call from a minor. Again, it's strictly confidential.
Now, you were telling me that you've got an event this week, is that right? You've an event, a publicity event. Did you say something happening Tuesday night, or am I getting my guests mixed up? I think I am, aren't I?
I think you're getting your guests mixed up, unless there's something I don't know about.
No, there isn't. It's me.
We have an information night tomorrow night.
That was it.
Not
we
an
were
event.
chatting in the office, I get excited information events.
We have information nights held roughly every month. Rachel does those, and she holds them in our office, which is 11 St Wilfrid Street, and they start at 7:30. So if you're interested in becoming a volunteer or knowing more about what we do, please turn up at 7:30. You'll get offered a cup of coffee and listen to Rachel for about an hour and a half, and then if you want to proceed to becoming a volunteer, we can go on from there.
And how often do they take place,
They
those
take
meetings?
place about every month, and she tries to run them on different days of the week. So tomorrow is a Tuesday, and the next one is April the 4th. I can't see without my glasses. No, April the 6th, which I think is a Sunday. So we try and do them on different days so that we can catch anybody who's interested.
So what sort of people do you find want to volunteer with
We
Samaritans?
have all sorts of people.
All ages, all
ages.
society?
We get we're very lucky in Preston because of the university. We've got a good relationship with the university.
Yeah.
And so we've got quite a lot of students who volunteer. And I think our oldest volunteer, she's now retired, but she was in her 90s when she retired.
Really?
Yeah.
And it kept her...
She was an amazing lady.
Yeah. Now, my mother-in-law, bless her, mother-in-laws, they always give you advice as son-in-law. And we used to say to her, don't join the Samaritans, because but it's nothing to do with me, but... And you can't say that, but, can you?
No.
When you're telling somebody...
No, it has to be their decision. We can explore their options.
Yeah.
And
So
we sort of say things like, have you considered, would you think about... But we always follow up with, but it's your decision. Yeah.
Must be a very emotional thing if you take a difficult call.
Can be. But we have a very good support mechanism. We have what we call daily... No, they're not called day leaders now. They're called duty support. So at the end of a duty, you ring duty support and offload, and if there's anything bothering you, then they become the listener and you become the caller.
Right, so and listening is very important. You've mentioned that.
We are a listening service.
Yeah, let's explore that a little while, because I know that you do work in prisons as well, don't you?
Yes, we do.
And in the prison service, it's called listeners. Yes. So let's just play a little bit of music, and then we'll come back and talk about that.
Okay.
This is Preston Samaritans, based in St Wilfrid Street, and we're going to talk about the listening side of things.
103.2 Preston FM. Keeping it local.
Here we are on Chat City on a Monday morning, a lovely sunny Monday morning in Preston. I'm joined by Margaret from Preston Samaritans. We were having a little chat behind that record that we're always seeing it in the newspaper, people taking their lives in a variety of situations. But what are actually the facts and figures here in Preston?
How many calls?
How many calls? Yeah, how many calls do you get?
Well, in 2013, we had over 19,000 telephone contacts and nearly 1,200 email contacts, because you can contact us by email.
Right.
And we also do a text service now, which is very popular with the younger people. And we took about 5,000 texts, or answered about 5,000 texts last year. And then also you can pop into the branch if you want to speak to somebody face-to-face. We did over 200 face-to-face contacts last year as well.
Do you find often that they are just a one-off call from many people? When they return a call, then you've got to start worrying about them, haven't you?
No, we have regular callers. We have some people that ring every day.
They need it every day.
If they need it, we are always there for them.
So how do we get in touch with you via email?
Via email, it's joe@samaritans.org.
I've got that one down here from the website. Joe with just J-O, isn't it?
J-O.
joe@samaritans.org. And
if you want to text us, it's 07725 90 90 90.
07725 90 90 90. We're hoping nobody's in that situation, but we're talking about the importance of listening. And I know that you offer a service in prison as well. You
we
train
have what we call the prison team.
Yeah, the listeners are in prison.
Yeah. So Joan and her team go into Preston Prison and train prisoners as... It's almost exactly the same training as we get as Samaritans. But we don't call them Samaritans when they're in prison. They're called listeners.
Yeah.
And they're available 24/7 to any prisoner who feels a need to talk to somebody. And of course, their problems, although they might be the same as ours, they can be very different to ours because, of course, they're confined in a cell. And also in prisons, all prisons have a mobile phone, which if the listeners aren't available, they can ask the wardens for the phone, and they will get through to... The only number that phone will ring is Samaritans, and they will get through to a branch of Samaritans.
So do you pick the lads in prison, the lads and lassies, because it must happen across the whole prison estate?
Yeah, every prison.
Do they come to you, or are they put forward by officers as suitable volunteers?
I don't know the answer to that.
I would imagine you've got to be a certain sort of person to listen, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah,
and
they do a marvellous service, and then Joan and her team go in once a week and sort of debrief them and give them the support that they need, because obviously they're not like us just doing 3 hours a week. They're on call all the time. Yeah. So it could be the middle of the night, couldn't it? And again, in Preston, because it's a remand prison, we might train listeners up, and then they get sentenced or released, and they've gone out of the system, so we've got to start again.
Yeah, so if those lads came to you after their release and wanted to volunteer, they would have had experience already, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they would. There are certain crimes that might bar them from becoming a Samaritan.
Of course.
But as we're a non-judgmental, we would accept any ex-prisoner that came to us.
So what would happen here on the outside if I was worried about somebody? Could I ring you up on behalf of somebody else?
A third-party contact, yes.
Yeah.
And we would then, if you wanted us to, and it was all right with the person, we would then we can ring them. It's what we call a third-party referral.
But you'd want me to tell my friend that when we need his permission?
It would work better if you did.
Yeah.
It would be a bit of a shock if we just rung up.
Yeah, an interesting one, because you do, if you care about people, you notice people beginning to struggle, and you think the signs are all there that this person's going on a downward slope, and you want to help, and you don't quite know how.
And sometimes talking to a stranger at the end of the phone who they won't know me, I don't know them. I'm not likely to ever bump into them. So they can open their heart more than they would, say, talking to a friend or a relative.
Yeah.
Because once you've said a word, you can't unsay it.
No. It's how do you raise your money then to keep this going? How do you fund this room and these volunteers? Because this is the next thing we need to ask. How can we help you?
We need money. We always need money. It costs somewhere in the region of 50 grand a year to run Preston Samaritans.
Really?
Because you can imagine our telephone bill is astronomical.
Is that your biggest expense, obviously? Yeah,
probably. And then we've got, the usual heating, lighting, electricity, rates, etc., etc.
Do you own the property, or is
we own the property? It was left to us a few years ago by a lovely man called Mr. Williamson.
Yeah. Was he one of your volunteers? Or was
I'm not quite sure on his history.
It was generous of him, wasn't it?
It was very generous, because up to then we used to hold meetings in Fox Street Methodist on Loon Street.
Yeah.
Or Fox Street, because there's entrance on both. And then we managed to get our own property. But again, because it's an old property, it always wants renovating.
Of course.
I did send out a begging letter to all the carpet shops in the area to see if anybody had some carpet they didn't want. I'm still waiting replies.
So really, you don't just need people to be on the phone, you need people to come and fix the plumbing. Yeah. The roof that's leaking.
The roof that's leaking, the carpets want renewing because they're looking a bit tatty.
Because everything comes out of your budget, and if
everything
people
comes out of our budget, and we prefer to spend the money on answering callers and making sure everybody's all right.
Right, so it's entirely self-funded,
yes.
Is that right?
We send begging letters out.
No grants?
No. Nothing. We get some help from head office in things like literature and pamphlets and posters and that sort of thing, but we have to still pay for them.
Are you supported by local businesses?
No.
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
It
if
would
some
be
of the
nice
local
if somebody would
businesses-
like to come along and say, here's a couple of grand, or...
Yeah, I mean, you were sponsored for your ball back in
Yes,
October.
Johnston and Swarbrick, who
Weren't you?
produce wonderful chickens, and
Yeah.
and we've probably all been in restaurants and had goosner chicken or
Well,
goosner duckling, and that was from Johnston and Swarbrick, and
Yeah.
they very kindly sponsored us and gave us all the chickens that we all ate.
Right, so
which was
really,
superb.
what we want is the people of Preston South Ribble to help you in all sorts of ways.
All sorts
we want
of ways. The supermarkets are very good. We send begging letters out for biscuits, and a lot of the supermarkets either give us biscuits or tea or coffee or vouchers that we can spend on things like boiling things like toilet rolls.
Yeah, so do you write a good begging letter?
Yeah, I do write a good begging letter. Well,
So-
it's been quite successful up to now.
So we want volunteers, we want business sponsors, we want people to get involved with time or with money.
Yeah, we do various sponsored events. We've one of our volunteers is doing the Paris Marathon
Wow.
at the beginning of April, followed
Right.
by the London Marathon the week after.
Right.
He's done both marathons before for Preston Samaritans,
He
but
must
he's
be
never
fit.
done a double whammy in the same time.
Well, Margaret, thank you very much for coming in. It's joe@samaritans.org, J-O,
Correct.
and the phone number, and the text number was?
Just a moment, I'll have to look at 07725
Yeah.
90 90 90, or
Right.
to ring Preston Samaritans 01772 822 022.
Thank you very much. We've got all those details. We shall put them somewhere where, well, I'll tell people again at the end of the show. Margaret,
That's
thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very
We've got
much
the
for
news
listening.
coming up.